Blame it on the movies, man. Just wait until the trial. It is going to rock. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. Leading up to my Scream 6 review, I am going back and reviewing the entire Scream franchise. If you haven't yet, make sure you check out my review on Scream. Now, in this video, I will be reviewing the sequel, Scream 2. The 1997 sequel finds Sidney Prescott away at college and yet again targeted by a masked killer. Now, I love how throughout Scream 2 there are comments made about how terrible sequels are, right? They are by definition inferior films. The horror genre was destroyed by sequels. They pretty much diss sequels all while giving us a worthwhile sequel. I just love that so much. So while I did love Scream when it first came out and still enjoy it immensely, unlike Scream where I really had no real gripes, I got a lot of gripes about Scream 2. First of all, and I love Scream 2, love, but I got little issues. Starting with that opening sequence. Scream 2 gives us our first black characters in the Scream universe and a movie all about exposing and going against horror tropes. They stay true to the good old trope of black folks die first. Now, Scream 2 does stick to its theme of being very self-referential as Jada's character is having a conversation with her boyfriend played by Omar Epps. We hear them talking about the lack of black folks in the horror genre, but I do enjoy the opening sequence and I enjoy Jada and Omar Epps' characters, but there are two big issues with this opening sequence, minus the black folk dying first. For one, it feels like the movie goes out of its way to kill off Phil and Maureen using a side plot that kind of goes absolutely nowhere. The victims in the Scream universe have some kind of connection to Sidney Prescott, except for Phil and Maureen. They ain't know that white girl. We are told that they are both killed along with Sarah Michelle Gellar's character because they share names with the original Ghostface killer, right? But this really is pretty much a plot thread of targeting victims because of their names, but it doesn't go anywhere. Like, whatever happens of that. Whatever happens of that. Okay, that sentence don't sound right, but y'all know what I'm trying to say. My other big issue with this opening sequence is the way that Phil and Maureen are killed. First of all, much like Sidney in the restroom at her high school in Scream, the killer just so happens to wait in the men's restroom at the movie theater because somehow the killer just knew that Phil would have to go use the restroom. I've been going to the movies for 50, 1,100,000 years. If I see one movie, I'm typically not going to the restroom. Sometimes I can see 2-3 movies and still not go to the restroom, but particularly if I'm only seeing one movie. And somehow he knew that Phil would go to that particular stall and knew that Phil would put his ear up against the wall of the stall to listen in if he heard noises. And not only all of that, but the killer also somehow knew the exact spot in the entire wall to stab in order to get Phil precisely in the ear. And even if he wasn't aiming for the ear, just get him in general in the head. How sway? I also remember being a kid seeing this for the first time and questioning if it is even plausible to stab a knife through a restroom stall. And I am still not sure. Now, y'all know I am that movie fan who has no problem suspending some belief. But this opening scene, like this opening sequence was a lot. And this is a movie that is very grounded. And then we have Maureen's death, Jada Pinkett. I lived at the movie theater growing up. Do y'all not understand? Me and my mom would go to the movies and watch 3-4 movies in a row. We would go when the sun was out, wouldn't leave till the sun was gone. It was a tradition for us to go to the movies on holidays. We were always at the movie theater. I I literally have spent my life in movie theaters, and I have never seen a movie theater where folks are running around, being loud, throwing stuff, throwing popcorn. Y'all, you can even see tons of people in the theater all just standing the hell up while the movie is playing. Come on now, child. You mean to tell me that you really got all this chaos going on as the movie is playing? Come on now, child. I ain't never seen this happen. But as much as all of that irks me and makes no damn sense, it might not sound like it, but I do really enjoy the opening sequence. Jada Death in particular was so overdramatic. But I love it. And I don't mean overdramatic in a bad way, like overdramatic in a way that I love. I love seeing Buffy in this movie, love her death scene and that whole sequence. Now, I will say, just like the first Scream, I was able to guess the killer, though I was only half right. And I remember watching this for the first time and kicking myself for not guessing Debbie Salt, because a lot of times in situations like this, the killer is always that side person with a small part that's not really part of the main crew. They kind of in the background, but they keep popping up. And I was so mad, like, Nicole, you know better. I knew Mickey was the killer, but I just could not figure out the second killer for the life of me. And I remember kicking myself and being so upset when I was a kid that I did not figure that out. Again, I love the whodunit and mystery aspect of Scream 2. I love how it is done. I knew good and doggone well it wasn't Cotton Weary, but I enjoy the suspicion that they paint on him. I love how Liv Schreiber plays Cotton, particularly that scene in the library. I knew it wasn't Derek. For one, I remember feeling like they are just not going to make the killer Sydney's boyfriend yet again. I just knew they weren't. And I just felt like he wasn't the one. I love how Joel disappears and then pops back up right after Randy is killed. Just little things like that they did. And again, I knew good and doggone well that Joel wasn't the killer. But it was just those little things regarding the mystery and how they played it up that I really enjoy about Scream 2. Definitely a much better whodunit than the first film, because, child, you could see it was Billy and Stu from a mile away. Like, there was no questions. I love the killer being Billy's mom. I did not see that coming in the slightest. I will say, though, I never understood why she needed Mickey or to kill anybody else. She wanted revenge for Sid killing her son. So why not just pop up and kill Sydney? Yes, I know that Debbie Salt explains that everything will trace back to Mickey, but as she says as well, if anyone tried to track her down, Debbie Salt doesn't even exist. So again, why do we need Mickey? Why do we need a whole murder spree? If you would have just randomly popped up, killed Sydney, and dipped, instead of making it this whole spectacle, there wouldn't have been anyone to look for, right? Because Debbie Salt doesn't exist. No one would be looking for Billy's mom specifically. So I don't know, that kind of always bugs me, but it's not that big of a deal. It's truly not. Now, it's not a big deal in regard to the story and my enjoyment of the movie is what I mean. Now, we do get the return of our characters, Sydney, of course, Randy, Dewey, and Gail. Sydney Prescott's character has evolved a lot once we get to Scream 2. We find her having moved past the trauma of her past, trying to start a new life in college, new boyfriend, starring in the school play, just pretty much, you know, building a new life. Still badass and G-code. Sydney always ready to slap fire out of Gail. You hear me? Did you get that on film? Yes, I got that on film. Sydney is literally the ultimate final girl. I absolutely love her showdown at the end with Mickey and then with Billy's mom. I will say, when Sydney answers the phone at that mixer, sorority mixer, it bugs me. I have never been compelled to answer a phone in somebody else's house. I mean, not even a inkling of wanting to do something like that. And in particular, Sydney's situation, don't answer phone calls, child. You are dealing with a killer who likes to call and taunt their victims over the phone. Baby, I wouldn't be answering no phone calls. Randy is back with that same Jamie Kennedy humor, talent, charisma. I love the conversation that he has with Dewey regarding who's a suspect. Of course, I love Randy, Joshua Jackson, Mickey, and Sarah Michelle Gellar, Buffy as I like to call her, conversation about sequels when they are in film class. Randy's deft ripped my freaking guts out. You hear me? And at 11 years old, I was that angry fan, mad that they killed off Randy. I'm talking about y'all. The death of Randy also meant no more Randy wit, and the tone definitely shifts after his death, which isn't a bad thing. The movie is still very enjoyable. I do love the Randy kill sequence though. Dewey is also still really enjoyable here, and I'm jumping ahead a little, but the best Dewey evolution for me, in my humble opinion, is Scream 5. But I do love the growth of his character in this second film. I feel like they try to put a little bit more serious tone on Dewey, but still goofy. There is more depth to him in Scream 2. Feels like a maturity, but he is still dipsy. Dewey and Gail are really enjoyable, though, as I said in my video reviewing Scream, the Gail character was at her peak in the first Scream. Still very enjoyable here, though, particularly those unlikable, cold-hearted, typical Gail moments, like when Joel wants out, and because he only came to film an interview, not follow, these murders, and Gail is pretty much like, don't F with me. Dewey and Gail playing off of each other is really enjoyable here. I love the sequence when Ghostface goes after Dewey and Gail when they are looking at Joel's footage, and they go off and they kiss because we get distracted. Child, look. The way they kept always making us think that Dewey was dead, playing with my damn heart, child. I can literally still remember being a kid in the theater with my mom, and folks were cheering at the end of the movie when they show us that Dewey was still alive. It was just so triumphant. One thing I loved to do growing up with the Scream movies was to guess which killer killed which victim. And baby, let me tell you, I just know it was Debbie Salt trying to kill Gail, child. The way she kept treating Debbie Salt, the way that then we see how just ferociously she's trying to kill Gail, or not she, but that's who I guess was behind the mask. Now, like I said in my Scream video, the one consistent thing I used to always love about Scream was how likable all the characters were, and that trend extends to the second movie. I really enjoy all the characters despite flaws. Casting did the damn thing. They always, from Scream and Scream 2, just consistently pick the best cast. I enjoy everyone, though I will say Derek singing in the cafeteria was and still is really cringe for me. Oh my God, I hate that scene. I wish it was edited out. I hate that scene. But the MVP for me in Scream 2, of course not counting my baby Randy and Dewey, because those were my fan favorites, but the MVP of the new cast is Timothy Oliphant as Mickey. Blame it on the movies, man. Just wait until the trial. It is going to rock. Mickey was such a perfect Ghostface, just the kind of boy you like to take home to mom if you had a mom. But you know what? For me, Mickey wasn't crazy. He was actually really freaking smart. The effects of cinema violence on society. The Christian Coalition will pay my legal fees. His whole defense that he cooked up before, even murdering people. I feel like for the 90s, if this was the world, in the universe of Scream, that was pretty brilliant in my humble opinion. And unlike Billy and Stu, he blended in really well. Nothing about Mickey was as off and odd as Billy and Stu, particularly Billy. It is amazing how well done this sequel is, even down to the third act sequence. The ability of that third act to almost rival the third act in the first movie. I can't say which is better, because I will be ranking the entire franchise, but Scream 2's third act final sequence is pretty freaking amazing. We also get characters foreshadowing in Scream 2 just like we got in the first Scream. For example, when Debbie is with the other journalists and she suspects Dewey, right? They're all talking to Gail, and after Gail shoots down Debbie's idea that it's Dewey, she ends up saying, "I'm only suggesting that if the killer is repeating Woodsboro, the killer could be from Woodsboro." See, stuff like that made me mad when I first saw this, that I did not suspect Debbie. I was so, I can't express how mad I used to get when I was a kid with movies and stuff, because that was my thing, was guessing the killer in movies. And I have always been actually pretty good at it. So on rewatch, when Debbie said that, I was like, wait a minute, why the hell didn't I pick up on that? Even though I don't see how anyone could have guessed Billy's mom. But if you did, hey, let me know in the comments, because maybe I just was the one that ain't guessed. Y'all already know I am the typical Scream fanatic, but I got another gripe with this movie, and that is the character of Haley. First off, she is amazing and enjoyable due to the talent of Elise Neal, but Haley is a very thin character, seemingly only here for comedic relief and to die. Now, I did hear that Haley was supposed to be one of the killers, but apparently that got leaked at the time they were filming, so they changed it. And man, I really would have enjoyed that for her character. First of all, I just want black horror villains, especially women. That would have been so freaking dope. And the talent of Elise Neal, that moment where the killer reveals themselves and can go completely off the rails and batshit crazy, I feel like she would have been so brilliant. But also what annoys me is the Haley death scene. Come on now, y'all. Now, first of all, the sequence of Sid and Haley in the car with the detectives, attacked by Ghostface, great sequence, enjoyable. When Ghostface is knocked out and they are trying to get out of the car, amazing tension, great scene, but I'm sorry. I got issues with so much in this entire sequence. First of all, are cops as dumb in real life as they are portrayed to be in movies? That has plagued me my entire life. The dumbest cops in movie history for me, the detectives in The Fugitives. And the second dumbest cops are these detectives driving Sydney and Haley, child. When the cops get killed in the car, y'all, come on now. It is so freaking dumb and way too easy to kill them. It should not be that easy to kill detectives or agents. Wait a minute. I think they were FBI or something. Not even just local cops. I think they were FBI. My other issue is, why did the killer get in the driver's seat? Before the detective gets up out in front, and why did that detective take so long to pull his gun? And then if a killer is on the roof, why would you just stick your head up? Oh, that bugs me. But anyway, before the detective even gets in front of the car, why does the killer just go straight for the driver's seat? So the detective decides it's a good idea to stand up a few feet in front of a car. Anyway, he gets rammed. Ghostface crashes the car and is knocked out, right? Or faking being knocked out, because we know Ghostface likes to toy with his prey. But for me, this sequence does not make logical sense. You know what this reminds me of? The sequence when Haley gets killed, I'm speaking of particularly. It reminds me of when Sarah Michelle, spoiler alert, if 20 years later you have never seen I Know What You Did Last Summer, It reminds me of Sarah Michelle Gellar's character getting killed in I Know What You Did Last Summer. It bugged me so badly because there is just no logical way that the killer made it through her sister's shop, down the stairs, around the block to get in front of Buffy and hide and wait and kill her. And that is the vibes when Haley gets killed. Okay, both girls climb across the killer and out of the driver's side window, right? They run towards the right, away from the car. They stop running, and they have a conversation still on the same street and in the line of sight of the car. Now, Sid and Haley are facing each other, but the car is still in their peripheral line of sight. After about a 60-second convo, Sydney turns and goes back towards the car. And somehow, on this quiet street, because nobody heard the crash and it's just a damn, deserted street. But on this quiet street with peripherals, Ghostface manages to crawl out of the window because remember, the driver door went open. But he can crawl out of the window, not make a sound, not be seen, go around like the construction equipment presumably, and go over to where Haley is over there in front of her. Really? Look, I know it don't sound like it because I have a lot of gripes, but I freaking love Scream 2. I absolutely love this movie. It is extremely enjoyable. It definitely beat the horror sequel curse. Scream 2 has one of my favorite final acts in a horror movie. They took everything that made Scream great, repeated it here, and just took everything to the next level. Now, while we have the black characters die first trope, Joe does survive, but I don't like how he survives, right? Because Joe does not actually survive. He doesn't survive the situation. He gets the heck up out of Dodge City. He just leaves and gets away from the group that Ghostface is after. Then he pops up after all the carnage is over and returns as Gail's cameraman. I will say I really enjoyed the kills in Scream 2. I love Jada's overdramatic, nonsensical ass death with the I love the Buffy kill. I just like calling Sarah Michelle Gellar Buffy. But I think my favorite is that really just sick visual of that metal pole being stabbed through that cop's freaking head. I also really love the movie within a movie that they set up here with Stab, but it did always bug me. It's a lot of things, it's a lot of things that bug me about Scream 2. But it always bugged me how Stab was able to recreate the conversation in the hallway between Sydney and Billy. Sid consistently never speaks to the press, so how in the world would anyone know what was said in that conversation? I would believe, this reenactment is Stab if they did not recreate the conversation almost word for word, because maybe someone happened to see them in the hall, but how would anyone know what was said? We saw the scene. No one was near them in earshot. It's kind of unbelievable that such a well-made sequel came out only a year after its original. I am gonna be that horror nerd who feels like they don't make slashers like this anymore. Thank you so much for watching this video and for supporting the channel. I will be reviewing the entire Scream franchise before my Scream 6 review. So make sure you have your post notifications on and make sure you are on the lookout for my entire Scream series. If you haven't, make sure you go back and check out my review on Scream. I'll see you in the next one.